The room was too quiet. That kind of quiet, it doesn't mean peace, it means danger. It was the silence before something big, something life-changing, walks into your world. Have you ever felt it? That moment when you sense something is about to test you, something bigger than your strength, bigger than your courage, bigger than everything you thought you were. That's how it begins, not in a game, not in a glowing arena, but in real life. Real life has bosses. They don't come with health bars floating above their heads, or epic soundtracks blaring in the background. No, they come in silence. They come dressed as ordinary problems that suddenly transform into monsters. And the first time you meet one, you never forget. I was 17 the first time I met mine, the first real boss. The one that seemed unbeatable. It wasn't a dragon. It wasn't a monster. It was a human being. But the truth? Some human beings are scarier than dragons. It was the summer after high school. I was broke, scared, and full of dreams I couldn't reach. My father had left. My mother worked 2 jobs. And I carried the heavy silence of being a man of the house without ever asking for the role. I wanted freedom. I wanted to build a life that was mine. And then, one evening, a job appeared: warehouse work, long shifts, heavy lifting. It didn't sound glamorous, but to me, it was a chance. When I walked into that warehouse for the first time, I thought I was stepping into opportunity. What I didn't know was that I was stepping into my first boss battle. His name was Carter. Carter was the supervisor. Big man, shaved head, thick arms tattooed with black ink, voice like gravel. He had the kind of presence that filled a room even before he entered it. And everyone feared him. Not respected. Feared that he ruled the warehouse like a tyrant, yelling, mocking, testing everyone's breaking point. He didn't just want workers. He wanted subjects. On the first day, he cornered me. "You're new," he said, his voice low but sharp. "So let's see if you can survive here. Most don't." His eyes locked on mine. And in that moment, I realized I wasn't fighting for a paycheck. I was fighting for my dignity. For survival. This was my first boss. The early days were brutal. He made me carry double loads. He laughed when I dropped boxes. He gave me shifts no one wanted. And at night, when I lay in bed, I could still hear his voice mocking me, daring me to quit. And here's the strange thing about bosses like him. They don't test your muscles. They test your soul. They dig into your weakness and wait for you to collapse. And every night, I wanted to quit, but I didn't. Because something inside me whispered, if you run from this, you'll run forever. That's the truth about boss battles in real life. They're not just about what's in front of you. They're about everything inside you. If you give up once, you train your soul to give up every time. Weeks passed. I worked harder. My body toughened. My back ached. My hands blistered. But something inside me was growing. Carter noticed. One evening, as the sun bled through the warehouse windows, he walked up to me, slow, deliberate. Everyone froze. When Carter singled someone out, it was never good. He stared at me, then said, "You think you're tough? Let's see." He pointed to a stack of boxes, heavy, towering. "Move all of them, alone, tonight, no help, no excuses." The other workers looked at me with pity. They knew what this was. It wasn't a task. It was a trap. If I failed, Carter would humiliate me. If I quit, he'd destroy me. This wasn't about boxes. This was about breaking me. And so the boss battle began. I grabbed the first box. My muscles screamed. Sweat burned my eyes. Time blurred into pain. The warehouse grew quiet. All eyes were on me, but I felt alone, like I was locked in an arena with the monster. Every lift felt impossible. Every step was agony. But here's the thing about boss battles. They don't end when you're tired. They end when you have nothing left and still keep going. At one point, I almost dropped to my knees. My vision swam. I could hear Carter laughing behind me. And something snapped inside. I wasn't lifting boxes anymore. I was lifting years of silence. I was lifting the absence of a father. I was lifting the weight of a mother who sacrificed everything. I was lifting the dream of a life where I wouldn't be crushed anymore. And slowly, painfully, one by one, I moved every single box. When the last one thudded onto the stack, my body collapsed. Silence. For the first time. Carter didn't laugh. He just stared. Then he turned and walked away, and I realized I had beaten my first boss. Not because I was stronger, but because I refused to quit. But here's the secret no one tells you. In real life, when you beat a boss, the game doesn't end. It changes. Because every victory calls the next boss, and some bosses aren't made of muscle. They're made of betrayal. So let me ask you this. What's harder to fight? A man who tries to break your body, or a friend who tries to break your heart? Some bosses don't roar like monsters. They smile. They laugh with you. They sit close, lean in, and whisper secrets only you can hear. And that's what makes them dangerous. Because betrayal is a knife that never comes from the front. It always comes from behind. After the warehouse, I thought I was ready for anything. I had faced Carter, and I had won. My body was stronger. My spirit had teeth. I thought I was unshakable. But life has a way of reminding you strength is never final. It just prepares you for the next test. And mine came dressed as friendship. His name was Daniel. Daniel wasn't like Carter. He didn't tower over me or bark orders. He was the opposite: charming, quick with jokes, the kind of person who made silence comfortable. We met in college. First semester. I was nervous, lost in a sea of strangers, and then Daniel appeared, warm, easygoing, the kind of guy who remembered your name after hearing it once. He became my anchor. We studied together, ate together, dreamed together. We shared late-night talks about the future, about making it big, about proving the world wrong. For the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't carrying everything alone. Daniel was my brother. Or so I thought. It started small. A strange hesitation in his voice when he spoke about my successes. A quick flicker in his eyes when someone praised me. But I ignored it. Because friendship is about trust, right? And that's the trap. When you trust someone, you stop looking for danger. You lower your guard. You believe they would never turn against you. But real-life bosses, they don't care about your belief. They care about your weakness. And trust is the deepest weakness of all. One night, I found out we had both applied for the same internship. It was the opportunity of a lifetime, a stepping stone to everything we dreamed of. We promised each other, no matter who got it, we'd celebrate. But then, I overheard something. In the hallway, Daniel was speaking with the program director. His voice was low, urgent. I stopped, hidden in the shadows, listening, and what I heard shattered me. He wasn't recommending me. He wasn't even competing fairly. He was tearing me down. He's not reliable, Daniel whispered. He cracks under pressure. Trust me. I've seen it. If you want someone dependable, I'm your guy. My heart pounded. My stomach dropped. The words cut deeper than Carter's insults ever had. This wasn't competition. This was betrayal. That night, I couldn't sleep. The betrayal replayed in my head. His laugh, his easy smile, all of it felt poisoned. I wanted to confront him. I wanted to scream. But part of me froze. Because what if I was wrong? What if I misunderstood? That's the poison of betrayal. It makes you question not just them, but yourself. And in that questioning, the boss tightens its grip. The next day, Daniel smiled like nothing happened. He slapped me on the back, joked about our classes, asked if I wanted to grab lunch. And that's when I realized this was his weapon. He wasn't just betraying me. He was hiding it, making me doubt reality. So I did the only thing I could. I stayed silent. I played along, smiled back, pretended I didn't know. But inside, the fire grew. Because here's the truth. Some boss battles aren't about endurance. They're about clarity. They're about choosing whether to let the poison spread or to cut it out of your life. Weeks later, the letter arrived. Daniel got the internship. He celebrated. He threw a party. He lifted his glass, called me his best friend, and thanked me for always supporting him. I clapped. I smiled. But inside, my chest was a battlefield, because betrayal doesn't just wound, it teaches. And the lesson was brutal. I had beaten Carter with strength. But Daniel taught me something darker. Sometimes the boss is someone you love. The question is, what do you do then? Do you fight? Do you forgive? Do you walk away? There's no clear path, no flashing screen that says victory. Only the haunting weight of trust broken, and the choice of what kind of person you will be next. And here's the twist. Daniel's betrayal wasn't the last. It was only the beginning, because the next boss wasn't about strength. It wasn't about betrayal. It was about fear itself. And let me ask you, how do you fight something you can't even touch? Fear has no face. It has no fists, no claws, no booming voice. And yet, it is the hardest boss to fight, because fear doesn't attack your body. It attacks your mind. It makes you hesitate, second guess, freeze. It whispers, it wraps around your heart, and it convinces you that surrender is safer than action. Fear doesn't kill you quickly. It rots you slowly. And I learned that the hard way. After Daniel's betrayal, I withdrew. The internship was gone. The trust was broken. And I carried the silent wound of knowing the world wasn't as safe as I once believed. I told myself I was fine. I told everyone I was fine. But deep inside, fear had planted itself in me, like a parasite. Fear of being betrayed again. Fear of failing. Fear of never being enough. And fear has this way of disguising itself as logic. I should be careful, you tell yourself. I should avoid risk. I should wait until I'm ready. But that's the trap. You're never ready. Fear will never let you be. My fear boss didn't show up all at once. It appeared in the small moments, when I hesitated to raise my hand in class, when I rewrote an email 10 times before sending it, when I stayed quiet in meetings even though I knew the answer. It was subtle, quiet, but relentless. Every decision became a battlefield. And unlike Carter or Daniel, this boss didn't stand in front of me. It lived inside of me. Everywhere I went, it came to. The breaking point came one night. In the middle of a storm. I was walking home after class, the rain pouring, the streets empty. Lightning split the sky, and thunder rolled like a drum. I pulled my jacket tight and walked faster. Then it happened. A sound behind me. Footsteps. My chest tightened. I turned. A shadow moved across the streetlight. My mind exploded with images. An attacker, a thief, danger in the dark. Fear sprinted through my veins. My breath caught, my legs froze. I wasn't in control anymore. Fear was. The footsteps grew louder. My heart slammed against my ribs. My hands shook. And in that moment, I realized I wasn't 17 in a warehouse. I wasn't standing in a college hallway overhearing betrayal. I was trapped in my own mind. The boss had taken the battlefield. When the figure finally passed, just an old man with groceries, almost collapsed in relief. But the damage was done, because that's when I understood. Fear had made me live inside a cage with invisible bars, carried everywhere I went, and if I didn't face it, I would stay locked inside forever. But how do you fight something like fear? You can't punch it. You can't outwork it. You have to walk into it. And that's the terrifying truth. The next day, I tried something different. Instead of running from the moments that scared me, I leaned into them. When my professor asked for volunteers, I raised my hand, even though my chest burned with anxiety. When my heart whispered, "Don't speak, you'll embarrass yourself," I forced myself to speak anyway. When my legs shook before walking into a crowded room, I stepped forward instead of back. Every time, it felt like death. My face flushed, my hands shook, my voice cracked, but slowly something changed. The more I walked into fear, the smaller it became. The more I stood in its shadow, the weaker it looked. Because here's the secret about fear. It thrives in silence. It feeds on avoidance. But the moment you face it, it begins to shrink. Weeks later, something happened that proved I was winning. A guest speaker came to campus. Big auditorium, full of students. Halfway through, the speaker asked a question no one wanted to answer. The silence was suffocating, and then I raised my hand. I could feel the old fear boss rising, screaming, "Sit down! Don't you dare!" But I ignored it. I stood, asked my question, and the entire auditorium turned toward me. For a moment, fear clawed at my throat. But I stayed standing, and when the speaker smiled and said, "That's an excellent question," something inside me broke free. The fear boss didn't vanish that day, but I felt it weaken. For the first time, I wasn't its prisoner. Here's what I learned. Fear never disappears completely. It waits, it lurks, it returns. But every time you face it, you gain strength. Every time you step forward, even when you shake, you steal a little of its power, and that's how you beat it. Not by waiting to feel brave, but by acting while you're still afraid. I thought I had conquered fear, but the truth? That was just the first layer, because fear has a twin. A darker twin. Shame. And shame isn't just a whisper. It's a roar. It doesn't just tell you what might happen. It tells you who you are. And when that boss appeared, it nearly destroyed me. But tell me, how do you fight a boss that convinces you the enemy is you? Shame doesn't knock on the door. It doesn't announce itself with thunder or fire. It seeps in like smoke, silent, invisible, poisonous. And once it's inside you, it doesn't just haunt what you do, it rewrites who you believe you are. After I had started to wrestle with fear, life seemed to be moving forward again. I raised my hand in class. I spoke when my chest burned. I walked into the storm of anxiety and came out standing. But then came a night that would introduce me to a new kind of boss. It was during winter break. I went home. My mother was still working long hours, still sacrificing, still holding the weight of the world. And I was sitting there, older now, yet broke, still stumbling, still uncertain. And that's when it hit me, the thought, the dagger. I'm not enough. It pierced deeper than Carter's cruelty, deeper than Daniel's betrayal, deeper even than fear's suffocating grip, because this voice wasn't from outside. It came from inside. And once I heard it, I couldn't unhear it. That's the first sign of shame. It doesn't just criticize your actions. It defines your identity. Fear says, "What if I fail?" Shame says, "You are a failure." And the moment you believe that, you're trapped. It grew louder with every reminder of what I hadn't achieved. Other students posting about their internships, friends landing jobs, relatives asking, "So, what are you doing with your life?" Every success of others felt like proof of my own inadequacy. Every glance in the mirror felt like confirmation. I was falling behind. And shame. It loves mirrors, but shame doesn't just sit quietly. It multiplies. It whispers, "You're not enough for your family. It hisses, "You'll never be enough for love." It sneers, "You're pretending to be strong, but you're weak, broken, a fraud." Tried to silence it. I tried to drown it out with distractions. Parties, scrolling, endless noise. But at night, when the world was quiet, the shame boss rose from the shadows and sat at the foot of my bed. And it always asked the same question. "Who do you think you are?" One night I broke. I remember sitting in the dark, the weight crushing me, my chest tight, my head buried in my hands. And for the first time, I thought, maybe it would be easier to give up. Not quit school, not quit jobs. Quit life. That's the cruelty of shame. It convinces you the only way to win is to disappear. But just before I fell into that abyss, something happened. A memory dot. It wasn't of Carter or Daniel or even the stormy night of fear. It was of my mother. I remembered her hands scarred, blistered, tired. I remembered the way she smiled at me, even when she came home exhausted. I remembered her saying, "You're stronger than you know." And for the first time, I realized the shame boss was lying. I wasn't worthless. I wasn't broken. I was in the middle of the fight. And fights don't define you by where you are. They define you by whether you keep going. The next morning, I made a decision. If shame wanted me silent, I would speak. If shame wanted me isolated, I would connect. If shame wanted me hidden, I would step into the light dot. So I did the hardest thing I could. I told someone, not everyone, not the whole world. Just one trusted friend. I said the words out loud. I feel like I'm not enough. And do you know what happened? The walls cracked dot because shame thrives in silence, but it shrivels when exposed. That's the truth I learned. Shame is a parasite that feeds on secrecy. The moment you drag it into the light, when you speak it, when you share it, it begins to lose power. It doesn't vanish in a single moment. It lingers. It claws back. But every time you open up, you cut it down. Weeks later, something shifted. In me, I started writing in a journal, not about achievements, but about truths. The ugly truths, the painful ones, the ones I didn't want anyone to see. And strangely, the more I wrote, the freer I felt. Because shame is like mold. It grows in the dark. But in the light, it dries, cracks, and dies. Looking back, I realized something. Carter was strength. Daniel was betrayal. Fear was hesitation. But shame was the deadliest so far. Because while other bosses fought me from outside, shame tried to make me fight myself. And the moment you fight yourself, you're already half defeated. Unless you choose to become your own ally instead of your own enemy. That's the secret. That's how you win. I thought shame was the final test. But life, it's a game that never ends. Because just when I began to find my footing, another boss appeared. One I didn't see coming. One I thought was a gift at first. Love, and love win. It turns dark becomes one of the most dangerous bosses of all. So tell me, how do you win when the person you love becomes the battlefield itself? Love. It's the sweetest word in our language. The dream every song, every poem, every late-night whisper is built on. Love makes you believe you can fly, that the world has meaning, that every wound can be healed. But here's the truth no one tells you. Love can also be a boss battle. And when it turns toxic, it becomes the most dangerous one yet. Because unlike fear, betrayal, or shame, love doesn't fight you from the outside. It fights you from inside your heart. I met her in spring. Her name was Elena, and she was light itself. The kind of light that makes you forget every shadow. The kind of smile that feels like forgiveness. The kind of eyes that make you believe in second chances. After years of carrying fear, shame, and betrayal, she felt like rescue. We talked for hours. We laughed until our ribs hurt. She made me feel Seemed like the cracks in me weren't flaws, but maps leading somewhere beautiful. And for the first time, I thought, maybe I had finally beaten the game. Maybe love was the prize after all the battles. But love can wear masks. And sometimes, the brightest light blinds you to the darkness it hides. The first signs were small. She needed constant reassurance. If I didn't text back fast enough, she'd ask if I was losing interest. If I wanted a night alone to study or rest, she'd take it as rejection. At first, I thought, this is love. Love is patience. Love is compromise. So I gave. I reassured. I canceled plans. I poured myself into her world. And she smiled again, which felt like victory. But here's the trap of the love boss. Every time you bend yourself to keep the peace, you lose a little of who you are. And one day you wake up and there's nothing left. The cracks widened. Her jealousy sharpened. Every female friend became a threat. Every glance at my phone became suspicion. I tried harder. I explained. I promised. I apologized even when I had done nothing wrong. But no matter what I gave, it was never enough. And deep inside, the shame boss began to whisper again. Maybe you really aren't enough. One night, the fight exploded. I had stayed late at the library, preparing for an exam. My phone died. By the time I walked home, she was waiting outside my apartment, eyes blazing, voice shaking with fury. You ignored me, she said. No, I explained. My phone. Don't lie to me. She screamed. The neighbors stared from their windows. My chest burned with humiliation, but I didn't fight back. I begged. I pleaded. I tried to calm her, and that night, when she finally left, I sank to the floor and realized this wasn't love anymore. This was war. But the cruelest part? I still loved her. And that's why the love boss is so hard. Because it uses your own heart as the weapon. It convinces you that leaving means losing, when in reality staying is what's destroying you. For months, I stayed in the cycle. Apologies, promises, explosions, tears, like a game with no save point, no pause button, no escape. And every time I thought about leaving, fear rose. Fear of being alone. Fear of never finding love again. Fear of being the villain in our story. So I stayed until the night she crossed the final line. It was a cold evening in December. We argued again about something small. My tone, a look, a misunderstanding. And then she slapped me. Silence. Eyeing her. Not shouting. Just silence. I touched my cheek, stunned. She gasped, covered her mouth, cried apologies. But in that moment, I felt something shift. The love boss revealed its true face. It wasn't about care. It wasn't about connection. It was about control. And suddenly, I remembered every other boss I had faced. Carter's cruelty, Daniel's betrayal, fear's grip, shame's lies. And I realized this was all of them combined. This was the hardest battle yet. The next morning, I made the choice. I left. Not with shouting, not with revenge, just with quiet, steady steps. And though my heart ached, though my chest felt hollow, I knew leaving wasn't defeat. It was survival. That's the secret to beating the love boss. You don't win by fighting harder. You win by walking away, by refusing to let your love be turned into a weapon against you. It took months to heal, to untangle myself from her voice in my head, to believe I wasn't unlovable, broken, or weak. But eventually, I did. And I carried something new with me, a lesson carved deep. Love is not supposed to cage you. It's supposed to set you free. Thought the worst was behind me. But then life introduced me to a new boss, not a person, not a feeling, a system. Something bigger than any one enemy, bigger than Carter, Daniel, fear, shame, or even Elena. A boss made of society itself. So let me ask you, How do you fight an enemy that doesn't have a face, but still controls your every move? Every boss before had a face. Carter with his tattoos and fists of authority. Daniel with his smile hiding betrayal. Fear with its invisible grip. Shame with its poisonous whispers. Elena with her love turned to chains. But the next boss, it had no face, no body, no voice. And that's what made it terrifying. Because how do you fight something you can't even see? It began after college. I stepped into the world ready, or so I thought. Diploma in hand, scars from battles behind me. I believe the hardest. Fights were over, but the real fight hadn't even started yet. Because now, I was stepping into the system. You know the system. You feel it even if you can't describe it. It's the endless job applications where silence is the only reply. It's the "we'll keep your resume on file" emails that feel like knives of indifference. It's the internships that demand your soul but pay you in experience. It's the bills that come no matter what, the debt that hangs like a chain, the rent that swallows half your paycheck. It's the quiet machine that grinds you down until you forget you ever had dreams. The system doesn't yell like Carter. It doesn't lie like Daniel. It doesn't slap like Elena. It suffocates. Slowly, quietly, until you can't tell if you're alive or just surviving. At first, I played the game the way I was told. Apply everywhere. Smile in interviews. Wear the suit. Shake the hand. Speak. The lines. And sometimes it worked. I got jobs. But they weren't jobs. They were cages. Fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Gray cubicles stretching like a graveyard of ambition. Clock in, clock out, repeat. I remember sitting at a desk one day, staring at a spreadsheet and thinking, this is it. This is what I fought Carter, Daniel, Fear, Shane, and Elena for? The system had me. But here's the trick of the system boss. It convinces you it's not a battle. It tells you, this is normal. This is life. Stop fighting. Just accept. And millions do. They bow. They surrender. But something inside me refused, because I remembered what the earlier bosses had taught me. I remembered the voice that said, if you run from this, you'll run forever. And I wasn't going to run. So I began to fight differently. I stopped chasing jobs that drained me. I started chasing skills instead. I stopped asking, who will give me permission? And started asking, what can I build myself? Nights after work, I wrote. I studied. I created. While the system drained me by day, I quietly built my rebellion by night. It was exhausting. Lonely. Sometimes it felt pointless. But slowly, something shifted. I wasn't just a cog anymore. I was becoming something else. A player who could step outside the rules. The system hates that. It punishes rebellion with fear of failure, of poverty, of being irresponsible. It whispers, stay safe, stay small, stay inside the box. But once you've seen the box, you can't unsee it. And once you've touched freedom, no paycheck feels like victory anymore. One moment burned itself into my memory. I was offered a promotion. More money, more status, more weight on the golden chain. Everyone told me to take it. My boss smiled. My mother wept with pride. My friends congratulated me. But inside, I felt the bars of the cage closing. And so I said no. Their smiles vanished. My boss frowned. My mother begged. My friends shook their heads, but I stood firm because I realized beating the system boss doesn't mean climbing higher inside it. It means breaking the walls of the arena itself. Asterisk, of course, the system didn't give up. It threw obstacles at me: financial stress, sleepless nights, rejection after rejection when I tried to step out on my own. But every small win felt like rebellion. Every skill learned, every project built, Every risk taken was another crack in the wall. And eventually, I stepped through. Not into wealth, not into fame, but into freedom. Because freedom isn't the absence of struggle. It's the power to choose your own struggle. And that was the greatest victory so far. But here's the haunting truth about boss battles. Even when you beat the system, even when you claim freedom, there's still one boss waiting. The final one. Because the deadliest enemy isn't Carter, Daniel, fear, shame, Elena, or even the system. It's the reflection in the mirror. So tell me, how do you fight when the boss is yourself? Every boss before had a face. Carter with his tattoos and fists of authority. Daniel with his smile hiding betrayal. Fear with its invisible grip. Shame with its poisonous whispers. Elena with her love turned to chains. But the next boss, it had no face, no body, no voice. Asterisk, and that's what made it terrifying. Because how do you fight something you can't even see? It began after college. I stepped into the world ready, or so I thought. Diploma in hand, scars from battles behind me, I believed the hardest. Fights were over, but the real fight hadn't even started yet. Because now, I was stepping into the system. You know the system. You feel it even if you can't describe it. It's the endless job applications, where silence is the only reply. It's the "we'll keep your resume on file" emails that feel like knives of indifference. It's the internships that demand your soul but pay you in experience. It's the bills that come no matter what, the debt that hangs like a chain, the rent that swallows half your paycheck. It's the quiet machine that grinds you down until you forget you ever had dreams. The system doesn't yell like Carter. It doesn't lie like Daniel. It doesn't slap like Elena. It suffocates. Slowly, quietly, until you can't tell if you're alive or just surviving. At first, I played the game the way I was told. Apply everywhere. Smile in interviews. Wear the suit. Shake the hand. Speak the lines. And sometimes it worked. I got jobs. But they weren't jobs. They were cages. Fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Gray cubicles stretching like a graveyard of ambition. Clock in, clock out, repeat. I remember sitting at a desk one day, staring at a spreadsheet, and thinking, this is it? This is what I fought Carter, Daniel, fear, shame, and Elena for? The system had me. But here's the trick of the system boss. It convinces you it's not a battle. It tells you, this is normal. This is life. Stop fighting, just accept. And millions do. They bow. They surrender. But someth. One moment burned itself into my memory. I was offered a promotion. More money, more status, more weight on the golden chain. Everyone told me to take it. My boss smiled. My mother wept with pride. My friends congratulated me. But inside, I felt the bars of the cage closing. And so I said no. Their smiles vanished. My boss frowned. My mother begged. My friends shook their heads. But I stood firm, because I realized beating the system boss doesn't mean climbing higher inside it. It means breaking the walls of the arena itself. Of course, the system didn't give up. It threw obstacles at me: financial stress, sleepless nights, rejection after rejection when I tried to step out on my own. But every small win felt like rebellion. Every skill learned, every project built, every risk taken was another crack in the wall. And eventually I stepped through, not into wealth, not into fame, but into freedom. Because freedom isn't the absence of struggle. It's the power to choose your own struggle. And that was the greatest victory so far. But here's the haunting truth about boss battles. Even when you beat the system, even when you claim freedom, there's still one boss waiting. The final one. Because the deadliest enemy isn't Carter, Daniel, fear, shame, Elena, or even the system. It's the reflection in the mirror. So tell me, how do you fight when the boss is yourself? The first time I thought I had won life was after I cut Carter out. I thought, that's it. Toxic people defeated. Now I'll live in peace. But then Daniel appeared, and I fought him. And I thought again, that's it. Manipulators defeated. Now I'll live in peace. Then Elena. Then the system. Then shame. Then fear. And finally the self. Each time I thought, this is the last one. Each time I was wrong. Because life doesn't give you one boss battle. It gives you an infinite series. At first, this realization crushed me. I wanted an ending. A finish line. A place where I could finally rest and say, I've made it. The battle is over. But there is no such place. Because as long as you breathe, new battles come. Different shapes. Different masks. Some days, the boss looks like bills stacking on your table. Other days, it looks like a friend betraying you. Sometimes it's your own reflection whispering lies. Sometimes it's the silence of a world that doesn't care whether you rise or fall. The bosses never stop. But here's the shift. They're not punishments. They're teachers. Every single one. Carter taught me strength. Daniel taught me awareness. Elena taught me the danger of love without boundaries. The system taught me strategy. Shame taught me compassion. Fear taught me courage. The self taught me mastery. Without them, I would still be asleep. Without them, I would still be weak. The bosses were never here just to break me. They were here to build me. You see, in video games, bosses are designed for one thing, to test if you've grown. The first boss checks if you learned the basics. The second tests your timing. The third forces you to use every skill you've picked up along the way. And when you lose, you don't quit the game. You try again and again until you learn. Life is no different. Every boss you face is a checkpoint, a test of what you've learned, preparation for the next level. But here's where life is harder than games. There's no pause button, no reset, no save file to reload. You only get one run, one playthrough. And that's what makes every choice, every fight, every scar matter. So much. So what do you do when you realize the battles will never end? You stop chasing peace as the absence of struggle, and you start chasing peace as the ability to struggle with purpose. You stop asking, when will it end? And you start asking, what is this boss here to teach me? You stop living for the illusion of a finish line, and you start living for the fight itself. Because here's the paradox. The endless bosses you face are not proof that life is against you. They're proof that you're still in the game. The only people who stop fighting are the ones who already lost. I look back now, and I realize every battle that nearly destroyed me was the same battle that forged me. Without Carter, I'd still let people walk all over me. Without Daniel, I'd still be blind to deception. Without Elena, I'd still confuse love with chains. Without the system, I'd still think freedom was given, not taken. Without shame, I'd still be running from my own shadow. Without fear, I'd still be hiding instead of living. Without the self, I'd still be my own prison guard. And without the endless battles that keep coming even now, I'd already be dead inside. The truth is this: you don't beat life. You play it. Every boss battle is just another level in the story, another chapter in the book, another chance to sharpen your blade, harden your shield, and prove, not to the world, not to Carter, not to Daniel, not to Elena, but to yourself, that you are still in the fight. And one day, when the final boss really does arrive, not Carter, not Daniel, not fear, not shame, not even the self, but death itself, you'll look it in the eye and say, I've been preparing for you my whole life. And you'll smile. Because you'll know you didn't waste your playthrough hiding in fear, waiting for the game to get easier. You fought. You fell. You rose. Again and again, and in the end, that's the only victory that ever mattered. Imagine this for a moment. You fought through battles of fear, endured storms of failure, survived the weight of rejection, and risen through the shadows of self-doubt. You think you've earned peace. You think you've gathered allies, people who will stand by your side when the world grows dark. You think at last you've found safety. And then it happens. The knife doesn't come from the enemy you've been watching. It comes from the friend sitting right beside you. This, my friend, is the betrayal boss, one of the most dangerous bosses of all. Because unlike fear, unlike doubt, unlike failure, betrayal doesn't just attack your mind. It attacks your heart. Betrayal is the boss that knows your weak points. It knows your secrets, your vulnerabilities, your history. And when it strikes, it does so with precision, cutting you, not where you are strong, but where you are weakest. You ever felt that? The sting of someone you trusted turning cold, vanishing when you needed them most, or worse, working against you in silence. It leaves you gasping. You don't just lose faith in them. You begin to lose faith in yourself. Now, picture it as a battle. The betrayal boss is not a towering monster or a shadowy phantom. No, this one wears a mask of friendship, of love, of loyalty. It smiles while its hand reaches for the blade. It looks you in the eye as it twists it, and the wound it leaves is invisible, so deep that no one else can see it bleeding, but you feel it every second. So how do you fight something like this? First, you need to understand what betrayal really does. Betrayal makes you question your reality. It whispers, maybe you deserve this. Maybe you're too naive. Maybe you'll never be able to trust again. And those whispers, they're poison. Because if you believe them, you don't just lose one person, you lose your future. You lose your ability to form alliances, to love, to risk opening up again. And if you lose that, you stop growing. You stop fighting. That's exactly what the betrayal boss wants. To leave you frozen. To lock you in a cage of suspicion and bitterness so you never rise again. But here's the truth you need to hear. Betrayal reveals nothing about your worth. It only reveals the character of the one who betrayed you. And if you let it, betrayal can sharpen you. It can make you stronger, wiser, more discerning. Think about every great hero's journey. At some point, someone they trusted turned against them. It's in those moments, those deep wounds, that the hero either collapses or grows into something far more powerful. You see, betrayal is a forge. It burns, yes. It destroys illusions, yes. But it also forges resilience, clarity, and strength that no easy path could ever give you. But here's the challenge. You cannot defeat betrayal by becoming bitter. Because bitterness is just betrayal's poison, working through your veins. The true victory is learning to heal without letting your heart harden. To build boundaries without building walls, so tall you shut out the light. To forgive, not to excuse the act, but to free yourself from being chained to the wound. And let me be very clear. Forgiveness is not weakness. Forgiveness is the refusal to carry someone else's betrayal as your lifelong burden. Forgiveness says, I will not let your betrayal define me. I will not let it stop me from trusting again. I will not let it kill the love in me. But of course, forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. You don't have to let the betrayal boss back into your camp. You don't have to pretend it didn't happen. You simply refuse to let it poison your future. Here's the real test. Can you walk forward after betrayal without losing your capacity to connect? Can you trust again, knowing the risk of being hurt again is real? Because that is the only way you move past this boss. And maybe that's the cruelest part of this battle. The betrayal boss forces you into a paradox. To survive, you must risk the very thing that nearly destroyed you. Trust. But imagine this. What if betrayal is not the end of your story? What if it's the beginning of a sharper, stronger, wiser version of you? The kind of version that knows how to see through masks, how to sense false loyalty before it strikes, and how to surround yourself only with those who have proven themselves. In fire, there's a hidden gift inside betrayal. Once you've been cut deeply and lived, you no longer fear shallow wounds. You've seen the worst, and you know you can endure. That's power. That's armor no enemy can easily pierce again. Now, let me leave you with a picture. You stand in the ruins of a battlefield. Ashes. And here's the question that will decide everything. When the next boss rises, will you recognize it before it's too late? So here we are. You've battled fear. You've endured failure. You've faced rejection, humiliation, doubt, betrayal. You've survived monsters disguised as friends, storms disguised as failures, shadows disguised as truths. And now you stand before the gate of the final arena. But as the gates creak open, you realize something terrifying. There is no enemy standing across from you. No towering monster, no cunning trickster, no betrayer wearing a mask. The arena is empty, silent, until you catch your reflection in the stone floor. And suddenly, you understand. The final boss has been waiting all along. It is you, the enemy within. This is the hardest battle you'll ever fight. Because how do you run from yourself? How do you kill the voice that speaks in your head? How do you escape the chains you've carried for years, the chains you forged with your own hands? You know that voice, the one that whispers, "You're not enough. You'll never win. You'll always fail. Who do you think you are to even try?" That's not the voice of the world. That's not the voice of your enemies. That's you. Or at least, the part of you that wants you small, weak, and safe. The part of you that clings to comfort even as it poisons you. And that part is not stupid. It knows your weaknesses better than any enemy ever could. It knows exactly when to strike, when you're tired, when you're lonely, when you're doubting. It's been studying you since the day you were born. And here's the worst part. It tells its lies with just enough truth that you believe them. It doesn't say, "You're worthless." That would be easy to dismiss. It says, "Remember, that one time you failed? That's who you really are." It digs up your mistakes, your shame, your darkest memories, and parades them before you until you bow your head and accept defeat. That's the final boss. Not a monster out there, but the monster in here. So how do you fight it? You cannot outmuscle it. You cannot outrun it. You cannot silence it by pretending it isn't there. The only way to defeat this enemy is to face it. And that means doing something most people spend their lives avoiding, confronting the truth about who you are. Not who you pretend to be. Not who you hope people think you are. The truth. The mistakes, the weaknesses, the flaws. But also the strengths, the gifts, the potential. Because here's the paradox. The enemy within is not just your destroyer. It's also your greatest teacher. Every weakness it points out, that's a map to where you must grow. Every doubt it throws at you, that's a signpost saying, this is the edge of your limits. Push past it. The final boss is not here to end your story. It's here to ask you the ultimate question. Will you become who you are meant to be, or will you collapse under the weight of who you've been? And listen carefully. This battle is not won in a single strike. It is fought every single day. Every morning you wake up, you face this boss again. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, courage over fear, truth over lies, you land another blow. And slowly, piece by piece, you carve away the power it has over you. But here's the moment you need to see. The final boss cannot truly be destroyed. That voice, that doubt, that shadow, it will always be there. The goal is not to kill it. The goal is to master it. To make it your ally instead of your executioner. Because when you learn to stand in front of your darkest self and say, I see you, I hear you, but I will not obey you, you become unstoppable. That's when you finally realize the final boss was never your enemy. It was your test, the crucible to see if you could rise beyond fear, beyond betrayal, beyond weakness, and claim the one victory that matters most. Victory over your self-doubt. And now picture this moment. You stand in the arena. The shadow of yourself looms over you, snarling with every mistake you've ever made. But this time, you don't run. You don't hide. You raise your head. You face it. You say, yes, I have failed. Yes, I have fallen. Yes, I am imperfect. But I am still here. And I will keep rising until I cannot rise any more. And then something shifts. The shadow falters. The whispers quiet. Because it realizes the truth. You are no longer its prisoner. You walk out of that arena scarred. Yes. Changed. Yes. But free. Truly free. Because once you've beaten yourself, no enemy in the world can defeat you. That is the end of the journey. And also the beginning of everything. But now I must leave you with this. The credits do not roll here. Life doesn't stop after one victory. There will be more battles, more bosses, more shadows, and sometimes you will lose. Sometimes you will fall again. But once you've faced the final boss, you'll know something most people never learn. You are stronger than you think, braver than you believe, and far more capable than you ever imagined. And maybe, just maybe, the final boss was never an enemy at all. Maybe it was the friend you needed, most the one that forced you to grow into who you were meant to be. But here's the haunting question. You must carry forward. Now that you've defeated the final boss within, what will you do with the power you've won?